Welcome back to the Studio Creative Community. I'm Amy Funderburk if this is your first time here, and today we are going to take a little field trip to Piedmont Triad International Airport in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I've recently completed installing the wishing tree there. But first we're going to do a little time travel so that you can see what the first iteration of this project looked like. This is the first iteration of the wishing tree as installed at Salem College in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This was my first participatory multimedia piece. One of my aims across my various bodies of work is to inspire viewers or participants to a reconnection with nature and its intrinsic holistic healing. And what better way to do that than to disrupt expectation by creating a tree inside? I was inspired by the trees that accompany many of the holy wells from my travels, where people would tie strips of cloth or leave other tokens to represent their prayers or wishes. And traditionally, as the strips of cloth, or clooties, would biodegrade in nature, so too would their ailment dissipate. And here we have the 2025 iteration of the wishing tree at Piedmont Triad International Airport. The other big influence on the wishing tree for me was a 150 or more year old tulip poplar in my backyard that finally succumbed to the effects of being struck by lightning decades before I had moved there. And in many cultures around the world, a tree that was struck by lightning is considered sacred. So all of the bark that you see and the slabs of decorative wood are all from this tulip poplar that I applied wood preservative to. And the thin branches that you see are removable oak branches. The tree was not harmed. It's actually a large, mature oak tree on my property that has only been pruned slightly twice, and in both instances for this project. These are removable branches that people tie their paper wishes to. And at the end of the project, it was always my intention to burn the wishes after I cataloged them with these oak branches. Now, I had a local carpenter build this base for me, and then I did the faux finishing on top in latex paint to make it look like the concentric rings of a slab of a cut tree. Around the edge, it was stained, and then my creative team and I glued this tulip poplar bark and the cambium layer all around the edge of the base. And you can see this undulating wood. I think it's so fascinating, these shapes. It's very sinewy to me. Now in this iteration, I did use some Spanish moss, like craft moss, around the base, and I built a little nest in the back. The branches ended up being more uplifting and a little jubilant. It looks to me like the tree is dancing. We've got these uplifted branches kind of rising up out of all of these different layers of the old slabs of wood. And so to me, it has a very kind of a phoenix rising from the flames energy. Whereas the first version, the branches were more like a willow. They were facing downwards. And so it's interesting to me to revisit the same idea. It looks to me like a very different piece in a lot of ways. One difference you may have noticed is that for this location, I did remove the oak leaves from this iteration. I went with brighter colored paper as well this time to represent the new and mature leaves as well as blossoms. Now, as I mentioned, for the first iteration, I burned the removable oak branches with the wishes, and I cataloged the wishes. So I realized I've got this ash and charcoal, and so I started a suite of drawings based on the wishes. Success was the number one wish with 32 votes, if you will, 32 wishes. So when I'm deciding on my composition for these, I'm thinking in terms of where did I feel, in this example, peace? But what's also going to look like peace or success or health and healing, etc., to the viewer. And so it's this kind of conceptual back and forth that's quite interesting. And so this suite is actually ongoing because sometimes I perhaps haven't even had the experience yet that would be ideal for each one, or I haven't developed it yet. Because certain wishes could lend themselves to be very literal, like, for example, animals or prosperity. I certainly don't want to just do a drawing of a big stack of money or, a portrait of my cats. I now have plans for the wishes for both prosperity as well as pets and animals, and also for respect and appreciation for a higher power. So please visit my website soon to see any additional wish drawings that are not currently on display, as well as to learn the locations that I chose to symbolize each of these wishes. Now, this is a site-specific installation. For example, you can walk all the way around this tree, whereas in the first iteration it was a little bit more flat against the wall. But in the full version, I do have recordings from the holy wells that I've visited inside the trunk of the tree. Now, that wasn't possible at the airport, so you're hearing some of those sounds now. And if you visit the Wishing Tree page of my website, you can also hear more of these holy wells. The third aspect that inspired this piece back in 2012 for me was finding, unfortunately, damage to a couple of oil paintings. So I really embraced the idea of impermanence with this piece, hence the burning of the wishes and the branches, and making something out of the destruction, which I literally am by creating these drawings. And I feel like I'm painting with wishes because I do apply the ash with brushes. So tell me, if you were with the wishing tree today, what would you wish for? Now, if you happen to see a wishing tree or a clootie tree on your travels, please remember to leave all natural materials, biodegradable materials for your wishes, because this practice has fallen under some understandable but unfortunate scrutiny lately because of the environmental impact when people leave things that don't biodegrade. The Clootie Well in Munlochy, Scotland is an incredible location. It's a great reminder that since clootie means cloth in Gaelic, that these sites are often known as rag wells. And the old belief that the ailment will disappear as the cloot rots is still followed here, which lends a very powerful eerie energy to the site. Now, ancient belief dictates that if you clear offerings from these sites, you take on the afflictions or issues represented by the clooties. Yet in 2022, someone not local to the area cleared the site without permission, and so it stirred quite a controversy. I find holy well sites such as the Clootie Well in Munlochy and the Madron Holy Well in Cornwall that you saw at the beginning of this video to be so evocative with their accompanying trees, just heavy laden with offerings. Sites such as these have influenced several of my works, including the Wishing Tree. I hope you enjoyed your time with the Wishing Tree today. These artworks will be on display at the airport through August of 2026, so in case you're flying in or out of Greensboro between now and then, please stop by and put a wish on the tree. I'm sure to do something artistic with it later. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider joining the creative community here. I'd love to have you on board. It really helps out the channel and helps it to grow. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like because that also helps out the channel. There's more videos to come. I'll see you in the next one.